Hello, everybody. This is Markus Vähälä. I'm not in Vantaa, Finland, but I'm in Sheffield, United Kingdom. And we are in the city center today exploring spaces related to art, culture, and citizenship action. And you can watch all of our shows from Citizen Network TV on YouTube. So follow us online on social media and check out our website, www.nolabelsnowalls.net, because we are moving towards linking people together with spaces, with action, and with media. So I would like to welcome Riku Turpeinen from Finland to the show. Welcome, Riku.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Here in Espoo, Finland.
That's good.
Yeah.
And I'm here in Sheffield together with Chiyue Chihana and Simon Duffy.
Yeah, greetings for you too.
Hello.
Hello.
So
Great to see
Riku,
you.
you've been a founding member of No Labels, No Walls movement. You're a musician and the hardest working person in show business. So what have you been doing lately?
I've been doing music for my new movie that I'm doing, and I hope you can broadcast it sometime in the Citizen Network TV, and also doing my Eurovision Song Contest song for the next year. So I'm busy doing music here.
Sounds very good. And I've seen a lot of your videos, and your videos have been broadcasted on Citizen Network TV and No Labels, No Walls Festival. So do you have an idea for the next festival?
Yes, I do. I have planned to do a documentary for music here, and need some help for US candidates and people out there to film.
Also
and,
here in Sheffield, perhaps.
Yeah, sure, from there too. And I'm pretty excited about that. Yeah.
Can you tell a little bit about your idea for that video?
It's going to be a documentary interviewing and interesting people out there for connections everywhere in the world, and sharing their experiences and how they are fun with music, and that way.
Sounds excellent, Riku. So No Labels, No Walls have a mailing list. So join the mailing list to get our latest news about the video project coming from Riku and from our friends around the world.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Riku, and good luck with your music, and looking forward next year's Eurovision Song Contest.
Yeah, I will.
Okay.
And now we are going to California to meet Michael Bierman. How are you doing, Michael?
We're good. We're so excited to see you guys in Sheffield and hearing about what you guys are working on. Yeah, really excited to hear it. So can't wait for today.
I've read from the news that you are building a new theater piece. Can you tell a little bit about it?
Yeah, it's called Mystery Theater Horror Show, and it's loosely inspired by the Rocky Horror Picture Show, created by people with intellectual disabilities. And its main theme is about displacement. and what's, why are people since the beginning of time being displaced? So, yeah, it's going to be performed in the end of June, July, and yeah, we're really excited. Hopefully, it'll be something really fun for everybody.
We've been talking together a lot about spaces related with art, culture, and citizenship action this year. Can you tell a little bit about the idea and our call to action?
Yeah, I mean, the idea is that, to have a democracy and also to have people, actually take action together, we need spaces for people to actually meet together. And spaces have to be free, which kind of doesn't work if it's in a private setting, right? Because everyone's got to pay the rent, so to speak. So what we've been noticing is that public spaces, especially public spaces, are being privatized. So what we're really interested in knowing, and also going virtual, which doesn't really lead to any collective action, doesn't substitute for people meeting. So what we're trying to do this year is to highlight public spaces that are existing, the challenges that are facing these public spaces, and then trying to see what do we have in common as far as the adversities, but also what's the importance collectively, of public spaces around the world. And that's the idea behind this year's festival. And the other idea we had this year, and Simon, you're there, is to do a collective newspaper. We want to create real radical change. So if we can create a collective newspaper that people write articles that can be distributed to the masses, it could serve as a real good education tool and a really good excuse for people to talk to each other about these issues.
Thank you, Michael. And looking forward to watching your performance and really good ideas related with shared actions and the newspaper as well.
Simon had something to say. What do you think, Simon?
I wanted, right. I just wanted to say, well, in a way, I wanted to point at Chiwe, Michael, because Chiwe works for Opus, and Opus run this brilliant community magazine in Sheffield called Now Then. Yeah. But they're also connected up with something called the People's Newsroom, which is all about that same challenge, Michael. So one of the things we need to do is get some of our citizen network allies in the same, maybe it has to be a virtual room to begin with, because I think I think Megan is in California.
Megan is in
so
California.
So although California is an awfully big place, and
I'm not very sure where, but
no, so maybe not right next door, Michael, but yeah, we need to follow up that newspaper idea because we have a lot of talent distributed across our community, and we've got a lot of projects on at the moment which are both about issues like the things we need to change, but also about telling good stories that inspire. I think that's it's got to be not just the politics of it, but the humanity of it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Looking forward to it. Yes, Riku, you had something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I had to catch my father now. I'm gonna leave for, but I might be coming a little later back. So
all right. Thank you, Riku.
See you.
Bye, Riku.
Bye, Riku.
Bye.
John, Marcus, we have also John here.
Hi, John. Yes. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. Next
John,
question.
You want to say something about yourself, and then as we proceed to the next thing?
I'm one of I'm one of the immigrants to this island. I came from Zambia 50 years ago. And I faced discrimination in the country because of my accent, and that's a joke. And basically, I'm an economist, and I'm becoming something of a journalist at the moment. But my all my energies now is trying to stop the government and others from turning the NHS into a miniature USA train crash, basically. The NHS is a national health service, and we are copying some of the elements of the USA's health system, which is 5 times more expensive than ours. So as an economist, that raises a big question for me. Why do we want to copy something that's 5 times more expensive and creates more inequality than we have in the UK?
Good question. Good question. So, Marcus, do you want to respond to that? Because I'm not Marcus. Well, might have lost. Hey, Marcus, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Do you want to respond to John at all and then proceed, or?
It is so great to have you with us today, John. I'm from Finland, where we are also struggling with our social and health sector at the moment. But I believe that the future is not in privatization or following the United States model, but coming together and creating a strong force against this kind of development. Because Finland has a big history of building a public social and health service which is functioning quite well, but the policymakers are trying to bring that system down, demolishing the good things that we have been building during the years. So Citizen Network is about citizens and communities, and we need each other to create a counter force for this kind of development. And that's why it's good that we are here in Sheffield together with Simon Duffy from Citizen Network and Chihana from Opus Independents, also a Citizen Network cooperative member. And I believe that today we can have a very good discussion about the developments and the history of Sheffield and where we are now and where we are heading. But first, I would like to introduce Chiwe. Welcome to the show.
Thanks a lot, Marcus. I'm trying hard not to. I'm trying my best not to pretend I didn't hear that John is from Zambia. Hi, John. I'm from Zambia as well.
And we have Simon. Where are you from?
Well, originally my family's Manchester Irish, so Manchester Duffys, but I've lived in Sheffield since 2002, so this is my home, as I think of it. And I describe myself as a generic northerner. So if you're not from England, that might not mean anything, but in England it means you're from the northern bit, which is the good bit.
So, Chiwe, what do you do?
So I work for Opus Independents. I'm one of the directors there, and Opus is an amazing organization that's based here in Sheffield, and with multitudes of projects. So our work is primarily to develop responses to complex systems problems. So we do that through creative arts, for example, supporting that, media. So collectively what we have are projects, we've got platforms, and we've got networks. So projects wise, I felt like I would bring you where we are now, and I could probably talk a bit about what this is. So this is a COVID memorial project that our organization was involved with. It was commissioned by the council, Sheffield City Council, and our Opus Films department developed an archival project that was presented at the museum, where people sent in their stories of the pandemic, their experiences, and this brought people from all walks of life together. We worked in partnership with Compassion Sheffield, Citizen Network, quite a lot of organizations around. But this one, to me, represents sort of the outcome of that as well, because it's more long-term. So this memorial was established. This memorial was installed in March this year, and this was after we had our Opus Independents in partnership with Compassion Sheffield City Council exhibition, a video exhibition of stories from the pandemic in the Millennium Gallery, which is one of the museums here in Sheffield. And that was a collection of people's stories, most of them on video, some of them written. And it's people's experiences, the stories that we did not get to hear, but the things that made us come together in a way that is quite strong. And so a poet was commissioned to look at some of those stories and create words. So if you look at this is a willow tree memorial, if you could look at it. So inside the willow tree, you have excerpts of text. So these are from the words, from the stories that people contributed. So for example, here we had no script, like we literally had no script. So that is something that has been taken from somebody's story, for example, and quite a lot if you look all around you. So I think this is a poignant space. And when you see the benches here, I was walking here about 4 or 5 days ago, and I was walking past, and there was a little girl with whom a lady I assumed to be the mother, and she had probably been told the stories or had participated in the installation, which is now a part of the Sheffield Archives. And they were coming here, this little girl talking to this woman, and you could tell that time just became one thing in a way, and space was enabled right here because it's a collective space of an experience. I think there's no other experience in my living time that has brought us together such as this story. So this is one of the powerful things that I think I'm really proud that Opus contributed to, because it means we can immortalize some stories and we can continue to build on that and see where our commonalities lie, who we are together collectively.
Is this common in Sheffield to do art creation together with the community?
Expressing my very biased opinion, because I am in the creative world. So I feel like there are lots of creatives and there's quite a lot of creativity around the things that people do collectively in the creative arts. So my initial engagement with the creative world in Sheffield was actually through my work with the refugee and asylum seeking community. And that time we produced a creative writing project and published a book, which I co-edited at the time. And that helped me get into certain other spaces. And that's how I actually ended up with Opus, because Sheffield does have those networks that are quite interlinked. I think of Sheffield as a city that is a demonstration city. Like there's so much hunger for social justice here. And then there's so many ways that people express themselves. And so create arts culture, some of the primary ways in which people do that. So I would say yes, Sheffield does that.
Yeah. Can you tell a little bit about the art and culture scene of Sheffield? What can people find when they travel to Sheffield?
Now Then magazine. Right here, we're online.
Yay.
So that's it's a festival city as well. So one of the projects of Opus is also the Festival of Debate, which is currently running. It runs annually and it has multiple themes. So this year the themes are on democracy, inequality, and climate, for example. And that brings it's the largest grassroots festival of politics in the UK. So that's one way. There's Migration Matters Festival, which is a multi-arts festival as well, that takes place during Refugee Week and beyond, but it's in solidarity, I think, to highlight the plight of refugees. And so there's a play on the word matters. So migration matters, it's migration subjects, or migration does matter. So it's a play on that, but then it brings in artists from so many places. And I am partly affiliated with that. I used to be on the board, but now I'm just a big champion of it. Then you've got the cultural sector. This time we've got theatre. So the Crucible Theatre, we've also got independent theatres such as Utopia Theatre, which is an African theatre specialized theatre company, which has recently just been given NPO status by the Arts Council. So you've got all that. You've got bands, you've got music. I mean, for those who are into their music, the Arctic Monkeys were birthed here in Sheffield. So there's quite a lot that's going on here. I'll probably ask Simon to chip into that a bit, maybe as well.
Yeah, well, we are a great place for producing fantastic rock music, pop music. There's loads of and over there, just look, that's City Hall.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of the more traditional end. And I think that I was like, this is maybe sound a bit more negative. I don't mean it to be too negative, but like a lot of the stuff that's creative struggles to find a home, actually, doesn't it? So as you walk around Sheffield, you'll find a lot of buildings closed down, or you'll find pop-up theatres or pop-up art things that don't necessarily have a financial base on their own. Yeah. And the traditional things are, the theatre is actually probably the liveliest in a way, I would say. Like the Crucible is very strong, but like down that way, you can't see it really from here. We have a little art gallery.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's fantastic, over the last weekend, the art scene in Sheffield, or the previous weekend, they have Open Up Sheffield. So all over the city, artists open up their studios, and you can go and visit the artists. And there are lots of people doing art in this place. But the actual art galleries in Sheffield are very small, very limited. I just, before we leave this space, look over there, that building there. Now that was John Lewis. Now that was the big department store, the posh middle-class department store. It's crash and burn in COVID. So we just left the COVID memorial. In the middle of COVID, all of these big department stores closed because the commerce won't support them anymore. These spaces are available. I mean, I actually sent a message to the chief executive of Sheffield. Why don't we have like the Tate Britain, which owns all the modern art in this country, is most of it's in storage. We could have a Sheffield exhibition centre that was like brilliant, but it isn't, you know. So there's a lot of injustice as well in the art scene, isn't there, Chiwe? There's a lot of inequality, people being creative, but the foundations aren't secure, the balance isn't secure, the sustainability isn't really there.
Yeah.
But you know, we do have gems. A lot of them are hidden gems or things people have just crafted, and then the official things they're okay, but it's much more. This is a city with 600,000 people in it. It's twice the population of Iceland, but it doesn't have an opera house. No. It doesn't have a proper symphony orchestra. There's a lot of things you would expect to be in a city of this size that aren't there. Yeah. So it's a bit negative. I'm not doing a tourist board thing.
There's a point to that. There's a point you're trying to make, which I kind of I think it's also backed up by research. It's only last year that Opus was commissioned by the South-Yorkshire Mayoral Combined Authority to map this the creative arts and cultural arts and heritage sector in Yorkshire, in South Yorkshire. So that is Sheffield, Barnsley, and Rotherham. And these are the things that actually came out because we actually went and spoke to people, especially those who are independent, about where they sit, how they contribute, or how the economy contributes to their art, and quite a lot. There's a big gap between the big arts organizations, as you were trying to point out, like the big theaters, but the independent theater scene, for example, is highly underfunded. So it means that the turnover is really high, it's not sustainable, and it means that certain stories are getting lost that could be told in multiple art forms. So we definitely have that challenge. And so that's not really you being negative, these are facts on the ground. Whereas the hunger is there. There's a lot of grassroots arts and culture happening, but it's not sustainable because it's not well funded.
Sorry.
Do you want to comment? Sorry, you're muted, John.
Sheffield has 38 choirs, choral singers, societies, ranging from folk to Bach, the Bach choir. And also every Christmas in the north of Sheffield, some of the pubs there have Christmas carols, which are locally composed like 200 years ago, 300 years ago, and they will sing them. And people come from all over the country for those 2 weeks before Christmas to come to the pubs and sing and drink their beer and mix and sing these old-fashioned carols and the new ones as well. So there's I think there's a tremendous possibility because singing is something you don't need anything for. You don't need an instrument, you've just got your voice. And of course, what I would like is if we did more dancing, because coming from Africa, the one thing that you do know is that Africans can dance. Yeah. And by the way, not just the black ones, also some of the Zungu like myself.
Zungu like you, yeah. Do you know when you talked about dancing, John?
Yeah.
So we are quite close to Barker's Pool, and every year, pre-pandemic, for International Women's Day, there used to be is it what's a flash dance? Yeah, organized for women by Barker's Pool. We haven't had it lately, but that used to be amazing. It was one of the things that brought me into the city as well. So I hear you when you said that. Yeah.
There's researched articles about singing and well-being done in Finland, and John, I totally agree with you. I've been singing all my life in choirs, and a choir brought me joy and a family as well. So it's a place to meet people, and it's like you said, it's something that connects us. So it's good that you brought out that Sheffield is a place for singing, because that means that it can invite choirs all over the world to come to sing here in Sheffield, not only in December, in Christmas time, but otherwise as well. But now I would like to ask from Simon, where are we now?
Where are we now? Yeah, so we're now walking down the road. We're just opposite the city hall, or the town hall, which is funny that it's called the town hall. It is the town hall, but we are a city. So you can just see that over there. These kind of, this is a symbol of Sheffield at its kind of peak. Like, so in the 19th century, this was where stainless steel was created. It was a hub of industry, and a lot of these there's some amazing buildings in Sheffield that go back to that history of creating stainless steel, before that cutlery, fine cutlery, the guilds for cutlery, all in Sheffield. So you get these amazing buildings. And this building, this style of architecture is kind of Victorian Gothic. So they were looking backwards to the kind of medieval period and the grandeur of that period. And you can see amazing sculpture in it and symbolism written into it. You can see right at the top there is Queen Victoria. That can you see at the top of that little bit there, in the white, it's Queen Victoria, United Kingdom flag. This is a peak empire as well. This is like peak colonialism, where we're busy destroying other countries. But this is part of what we did with the money that we built these kind of symbols, grand symbols. It's a funny place if you've been in it. I mean, it's not actually a great work environment, I don't think. It's very old-fashioned inside. It's not a modern council, but it's kind of cool. Where are we going now? We just try to walk down the road a bit. We've crossed, mind the step, Marcus. Pigeon. So so this is the centre of power in Sheffield. And look on the below the Queen Victoria scene. Can you see that? This is the most exciting thing that's happened in Sheffield recently. Is Sheffield United, the football club, just got promoted from the Championship to the Premier League. This is they're not my team actually, but I'm a Sheffielder, so I'm happy. Let's go through the Peace Gardens. Yeah.
Go through the Peace Garden, and then we'll take you to the Winter Garden, and then you can get to see the theatres as well. So yeah, this is the best, local decision making.
We're trying to be really polite at this point.
At this point.
Will you show them the Samuel Holbury Memorial?
The what?
Where is it, John?
Samuel Holbury Memorial. There's a plaque as you go towards the fountains.
All right, yeah, we'll show.
Yeah.
Oh, now I know who Samuel Holbury is because you explained it to me last week. Because I was chairing John at the festive debate at the Quaker Meeting House, where John was explaining, amongst many other things, about how in Birmingham they invented a bank that belonged to the council, and that they then enabled even the poorest person to save money and enabled inward community investment in Birmingham. And John also explained how that was kind of eaten away and destroyed by political and economic decisions that happened later. And that's one of the things we need to start doing. Michael talked about how we maybe are losing public spaces. We're also losing public money. We're losing the capacity to make our own money, to put money in the right things. So where is it? Where is it from here? Is it down the steps?
I don't know about
If you go, if you go towards the fountain, the major fountain.
Yeah.
And I can tell you. Well, you can say who this man is, actually, John. Now you're guiding us on this tour virtually. You tell it. Explain the Chartist movement.
It's an oval plaque on the left-hand side, going down the steps, facing the co-op. Look at one of the pillars on the left-hand side.
So we're here. I was talking about these ones.
No, where's the fountain?
The fountain's over there.
Oh, is it?
The fountain on the left.
Keep going on the other side of the fountain.
It's in front of us.
Okay.
There's the fountain.
Okay, you've got to stand on the fountain facing the co-op bank, but on the far side of the fountain.
We should face the co-op and on the far side.
Yeah, and if you stand on the far side of the fountain facing the co-op, on your left-hand side there's a pillar and there's a plaque to Samuel Holbury, an oval plaque. Stop. On your left now, on your left-hand side.
My left.
No, yes, well, okay. Now bring the camera around. Around more. I can't. Where?
There's it. Yeah, Simon's found it.
You found it? Okay.
I feel like I haven't really walked around Sheffield.
Yeah.
Well,
while they're walking, there was a group called the Chartists in 1812. They started, and they reacted to what was called the Corn Laws, where they fixed the prices of the corn so that they were unavailable to the population. The corn was. So the Chartists put up their own charter, like a freedom charter, with 9 parts to it, demanding that they put these freedoms back. And it grew to a huge movement. In London, they had a rally of 200,000 people, and that really scared the government, made them frightened. So they made it illegal. And in Sheffield, this young man, Samuel Holbury, joined a group of Chartists, and they were banned. There he is. And they were banned. But they decided to have a Sheffield Revolution, and they had the Sheffield Revolution. They were planning it, but they did something very stupid. They had it in a pub. Okay, and of course, when you put something in a pub, everyone hears about it. And the next thing was
the reason pubs were licensed was so that the government could control the flow of information through pubs. I read recently. So actually, the pub owners were narcs for the government.
No.
What? Sorry, John. I've not made this up. I read this in a real history book.
Well,
anyway, a lot of pubs were places where actually information would be leaked to the officials.
So they were they were betrayed and they were arrested and sent on trial to 60 miles to the north to the capital of Yorkshire, York, a city called York. And he died there of malnutrition and ill treatment. And he was 28. And they brought him back, the body back to Sheffield, and buried the body in it's what's called the cemetery gardens, which is something else worth showing them, which is not far from me. And 50,000 people came to the funeral. Now you're talking 50,000 people in a city which at that time maybe had 200,000 maximum. They came to the funeral, and we commemorate him. But also, the ironic thing is 6 of the 8 charter points they made for their freedom, 50 years later, 6 of them were in place and were enacted and are still in place today. So that's real history.
There's a really good article about the Chartist movement on Citizen Network website called End Westminster Rule. And it explains exactly what John's described. And actually, I think Gavin Barker and I are dreaming of how we could recreate a charter for the 21st century. About a quarter of the population of England signed the charter.
Yeah.
Right. So it's hugely popular as a way of mobilizing people for a different vision of democracy.
Yeah, and we have to get away from central government. We must get away from central government, particularly in the United States and in the UK. We've got to go back to families, villages, communities. So what you're doing, you lot, is incredibly important. I've got to go and have supper with my wife now. So will you excuse me, please?
Thank you so much.
Thank you, John.
For the knowledge.
Ta-da.
Yeah. I thought that would be nice to show the sort of back of the
Town hall.
Town
Yeah,
hall.
it's very grand, isn't it?
It is quite grand and just what the sun does. Like you don't see this many people ordinarily when it's cold, but I think it's starting to get warm, and a lot of people in Sheffield come here. This is where families come to spend time, and sometimes you see in the fountains there little people getting wet.
In the summer, they do a nice thing where they turn it into a kind of beach area as well.
Yeah.
So they recreate the beach, which works especially where so much poverty in the city now, so people can't get away for a holiday, but they do make efforts to create some kind of holiday space there, which is nice.
Yeah, and this is actually this whole place that we've been talking from the last few minutes. It's the Peace Garden. It was commissioned as a Millennium Project, but I'm not sure. Simon. I'm not sure
Peace
what.
Garden is older, isn't it? And they made some
changes of the Millennium Project.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah. So when you looked on there, it talks about the Spanish Civil War, which is I don't know. So there's some. I think there's probably a very old history to this, which I don't think. Let's go. Well, I think we should go to
so
the
let's
Winter
go to the
Gardens.
Winter Gardens, and then you get to
See something a bit.
yes, something a bit different. But we are literally in the heart of Sheffield at the moment.
And you could see here, like in the sculpture that Chiwe showed you, these themes of stone and steel and water keep cropping up. So there's been some very good, even though Sheffield's not very wealthy now, there's some very thoughtful people doing some things. So you see that threaded right through the city now. Very good
water, stone,
town planning and creative use of materials with a theme. So they're all a bit different, but they're not too shiny or they don't fall over, if you know what I mean. Like I think some cities where there was a lot of money thrown at them, like Manchester, they did a lot of things and now it looks quite tatty.
I think that's the thing about Sheffield. It still feels like home, you know. You don't feel like you're going somewhere very shiny, like you say. It's not like going to Dubai where you think of, if I touch this, it will break. It just says this is your place. It always carries that along with it. I think Sheffield is a very grounded city in terms of personality. I think that's what it is. It's a very grounded. I think that plays as well to the idea that we're a city of many villages, maybe, because villages do that, right? Villages.
You don't get above yourself.
Yeah.
This is kind of can have a negative thing, but it's a positive thing as well. Like everyone's voice now is going to become too big head.
Nah, yeah.
We don't like that.
What is this place?
The Winter Gardens. Can we? These are the winter.
This is a nice space. This is often don't fall over, Marcus. But this is often a place where you do have art exhibitions, actually.
Yeah.
This is quite often used as a public display, and it leads onto a very nice little art gallery section down there, which is a nice space.
Mhm.
It might be shut now, but there's some lovely little exhibitions and a regular exhibition space here. And maybe show people the jungle, the
Yeah.
Sheffield jungle.
And so I love the winter gardens because don't ask me what the plant names are, but there's a lot of plants that I recognize that I've seen in Zambia and parts of Southern Africa. So it really does give me a piece of home in many ways. Things like the aloe vera, I only know that, the bamboos. Typically, these are some of the plants that I would ordinarily find, and it's nice to have that. Like cactus, the various types of cactus. One of the other things that I like when Sam was talking about this place as a venue, I've read poetry in here, but I've also come to experience poetry being read here in the evening, and then it's really dark, and then you've got these lights, small lights, and it's mostly community projects, community poets that would come and read poetry here. I really like that. And sometimes up and coming artists as well, musicians, will perform here. So this essentially becomes a venue as well, this place that we're walking into now, and people sit around it. So this is part of what I would call the arts and culture hub as well of Sheffield.
How does the city of Sheffield support art and culture for ordinary people creating art and culture? Do you have spaces? Do you have support?
So this would be one of the spaces that is actually managed by the council. One of the other spaces is outside the Winter Garden. So there's an open space between the theatres, which we're going to be saying. That's also a council area. So if you're wanting to perform there, you book through the council. So there are things like that. I feel like a lot of the arts and culture that I personally consume in Sheffield is very grassroots led. So there's that spirit of wanting to do, and people just deliver. And yeah, so in some cases you get to see engagement from the council, involvement from the council, but I don't think it's often led from there. It's often very citizen led. I feel like it's community and citizen led.
Simon, what can you say about the history of Sheffield?
Oh, well, it's a place that's been an important place for 300 or 400 years. It's before that there was a battle here in the English Civil War, so which is the battle after, or the battle to capture the king and chop his head off, putting it simply. But one of the early battles of democracy took place here. And it's grown up really, its growth was really accelerated by the Industrial Revolution. So it was a place, it's a place that brings together a lot of power that comes from the hills, actually, in the form of water. So originally the water mills that drove a lot of the early industry. And then as people understood the power of coal, and there are a lot of coal fields out to the east and north of here, then Sheffield became the natural place to create iron, and then steel, and then stainless steel. And even today, although the old-fashioned steel industry has gone and the jobs have gone, Sheffield still produces enormous outputs of steel and of the highest quality. And actually, somebody who runs one of those companies explained to me, actually nowadays, high-quality stainless steel is all about recycling. So the quality of the stainless steel goes up in proportion to your ability to get old stainless steel and repurpose it as even more high quality stainless steel. So it's still a city of steel. It's also a city with two huge, great universities in it. So as part of the, I suppose that kind of northern emergence of a demand for civic learning, of that kind of, there's cultural stuff is mirrored by this radical history that John was talking about. So this place has always been, it's currently got a mixture of Labour, which is socialist, Green, and Lib Dem, which is basically the centre party. There are very few people from the right in this city, and it's has no history like that. So it's always been a place that's believed a bit in social justice. So before the war, a lot of public hospitals, public provision was in here, but it's lost a lot of that power now as central government has undermined local government, not just in 1945, but particularly under Thatcher. And then when the current Conservative government came in 2010, just really has chiseled away at the fabric of local government. So it's very difficult times for local government in England, but particularly in places like Sheffield, really struggling. It's not a lot blamed often for problems that are not of their making, but struggling to maybe have faith in the community, perhaps. That's our challenge at the moment, really. So, I say 600,000 people makes it the fourth largest city in England, but it still feels like quite a modest place, a beautiful place. I love it. And I came here in 2002, a rainy day in February. I walked up around here, it's pouring with rain. It wasn't as nice then because some of these developments hadn't happened.
Right.
But I fell in love with the place. And there's something about the attitude.
I always say, actually, that's going to ride onto your description of Sheffield, this democratic face, I think, and that community-led sort of action. I was talking about Sheffield being a city of festivals, but Sheffield is also considered, well, we think of Sheffield as a city of demonstrations as well, and a lot of left-leaning demonstrations. So you will find the solidarity networks here will rise up when there's a challenge that needs to be stood up for. For example, Sheffield recognized, was the first council in the UK to recognize Somaliland as its own country, which the UK government has yet to do as well. So and Sheffield has a huge Somaliland community that came here. This is where they were dispersed when those do a big dispersal system. So you have that here, and it's embedded. So when it comes to immigration, for example, the protests around the immigration bill, for example, you will find that Sheffield will have a solidarity demonstration, and that brings out a lot of people. Cost of living crisis, there will be a demonstration here in Sheffield, and people will come out. When you think of unions, the unions will come out. So there's quite a strong presence of in terms of protesting for social justice here. And they like to be heard, and they like to be seen, and they like to say we are standing with the people. So there's that. So the hunger is there. I often find sometimes it's people just not knowing exactly what to do with it. And maybe this is where I love the idea of neighborhood democracy movement. I think that localizes your actions. It gives you that thing of I can do this about this situation that is close to my heart, and it just feels so magnanimous. But then things like citizen network, neighborhood democratic movement, those things I think bring it home, and then you can do something about it. You don't feel helpless. There's something you can do locally. I feel like Sheffield does that.
Yeah. I think with Opus, Citizen Network has given birth to two very hopeful movements. One is the UBI Lab Network, which is about changing the economic situation, as long as Marcus doesn't fall over, but making sure everybody has a secure income. And so that started here in Sheffield, which has been a very successful movement. We've still got lots of work to do. But as Chiwe says, during COVID, going back to the COVID memorial, we gathered together many people who care about neighborhoods and community, but we started to say, but they need real power. They don't just need patting on the head. Oh, aren't you nice? You've turned out and you've taken care of people. People need real power over their communities, over how things are shaped, over how people can come together and do things together. Does that make sense? And so that's where the Neighbourhood Democracy Movement is born. And Sheffield, there was a study done by a cyclist, and he worked out just by asking people in Sheffield, which part of Sheffield he comes from, and it came up with 142 different neighbourhoods. So I've been banging away at this for a little while now, just pointing out that, and everybody knows it. So there are 142, or maybe a few more even, neighbourhoods in the city, and those are average out about 4,000 or 5,000 people. So if we're talking about space and how people come together, then we also need these big civic spaces are going through a crisis at the moment, a commercial and economic crisis and a crisis of spirit as well, I think. But we also need to be looking back into these neighborhoods and saying, every neighborhood actually needs a space. Every neighborhood needs to have a place people come together. Because actually you can't do the real democratic stuff at any other scale than that.
Mm-hmm.
You can turn up on a demonstration and be 10,000 or 20,000 people. And then what? Yeah.
This is where you go back to your local,
you have to have something you can go and do.
Yeah.
And
stand very close to Simon, so we can watch.
So I think that's where we are really now, trying to explore that.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to say thank you guys so much for showing Sheffield. I have never seen Sheffield before. It's so interesting. And it feels like you're mentioning very cozy, very quaint, but also very community, or at least a lot of community history, which is so great to see. I think a lot of the same kind of challenges you're facing in a bigger scale with LA being over 4 million, I think, people, which is quite larger than Sheffield, but still the same issues we're kind of facing. And we have a lot more money than Sheffield, obviously LA, but still it's obviously worse in LA than it is in Sheffield. I'm sure a lot of the challenges that, so anyway, so it's very interesting. I'm really glad I got to spend the hour with you guys. Thank you so much for sharing.
Can we just point out the crucible just for the,
Sure.
that one over there?
This is the theatre quarter.
Yeah.
So
That's the theatre behind. Can you see that, which says the Crucible? It's also where every year, this won't mean much to everybody, but it's every year the World Snooker Championships are. So that's quite that's a famous Sheffield monument, the Crucible Theatre. So I'm just round the corner, you don't see it. On Thursday, we'll all be gathering together to have a Citizen Network Neighbourhood Democracy conference called It's Our Community, which will be about all of these issues and trying to make a difference here in Sheffield, but also around the world. So
thank you so much, Simon. Thank you so much, Chiwe. And this was No Labels, No Walls, looking for spaces for art, culture, and citizenship movement in Sheffield. So tune in next time, every month. No Labels, No Walls. It's your movement. Thank you, everybody.
thank you.
Bye, guys. Thanks so